we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of conversations ongoing, free agency and trade. I think this has the potential to be, for the industry, a pretty active winter meetings, and that's a good thing. So we're having a lot of conversations. We'll see where it goes. But look, we've got a lot of off-season left. We've got a chance to continue to make this team better, and that's where our priority is.
How realistic is it that Pete Alonso is a part of that?
We'd love to bring Pete back, and Pete's been a great Met. He had some enormous hits for us, and we'll see where that goes.
Is there room in the budget for him?
I think our ownership has consistently demonstrated that there's going to be resources when we need them. There is the ability for us to make baseball moves when we think that they're there to improve the team, and we're going to continue to pursue a wide variety of areas to continue to improve our team.
Would you characterize discussions about Pete or with Pete as something else had to get done first before you got to Pete?
I'm not going to characterize discussions about any particular free agent or negotiations with any particular free agent.
Well, what makes you suspect this will be a more active winter meetings for the industry overall?
I think just the volume of conversations, both leading up to this week and the types of conversations that seem to be ongoing in the industry this week.
It seems obvious that Vientos is going to be a part of your team one way or the other. Do you see him right now as a third baseman, or would you have an appetite to move him to first if that's how the chips fell for you?
Yeah, Mark did a tremendous job for us at third. We're very comfortable with him there, and certainly as of now, we see him as our third baseman.
What do you see as the biggest needs left, given that you've completed a few deals, you have a few deals pending? What's left on the to-do list, needs list?
I think we are in the process of checking some of the boxes that we came into the offseason wanting to check, and we're going to continue to do that. I think we can really have the ability to add to all segments of our team, and it's just finding the right deal and the right players. We can continue to add to our pitching staff, and we still have places in our position player grouping where we think some additions could make sense as well.
When you say you view Mark Vientos as a third baseman, what does that mean for Brett Baty?
So Brett did a great job last year of creating some positional versatility for himself. We'd feel comfortable with him at second base. I think he has the ability to flex into the outfield if we need him to do that. So I think Brett has done a really nice job of giving himself some options in different ways he can impact the team.
It's fair to say your starting first baseman next year is not on your roster right now.
I don't know. We've got a long way before we have to make the decision as to who our starting first baseman is going to be. I'm confident that by opening day we will have a starting first base.
When do you think is like an appropriate time to make that call for Vientos, one way or the other?
I think Mark's focus right now is and should continue to be third base, and if at some point that changes, we're certainly going to have a conversation with him.
So could you envision using Baty in a utility kind of role?
Sure. I think Brett has the ability to play multiple positions. I think that's a very valuable skill set to have, and he's comfortable doing that. So, yes, he could potentially fill that role.
Did his range improve? I mean, I obviously didn't see him play second base, and you mentioned the outfield. I mean, that wasn't his strongest tool as a third baseman necessarily. So what gives you the confidence now that he could be more flexible? Is it the agility work, the infield, stuff with your coordinators?
Yeah,
been doing, right?
I think he's worked very hard at it. There are lots of different ways to be effective defenders, right? Some defenders have a ton of range and lateral range, and they can get to everything. Some defenders are really, really good at making the plays that they can get to. And so I think Brett has done a really good job of ensuring that when he's getting to the ball, he's converting an out. At second base specifically, he spent a lot of time working on that turn at second base. And he got to the point where we'd be confident at playing him there.
Hypothetically, if you were to acquire a right fielder, where could you see Starling Marte hitting?
I think if we were to acquire a right fielder, we'll talk about that when we acquire a right fielder.
What'd you do last night?
I flew here.
Have the prices for free agents at this point been aligned with your expectations entering the offseason?
I think so. I think it's always difficult to tell midstream exactly where the free agent market is. It's a little bit more helpful to look at it in retrospect. Every year I've ever been around the game, at some point in the offseason, there is a cry of inflationary free agency. And then at some point in the offseason, there's this worry that a bunch of players aren't going to either get paid what they deserve or aren't going to have jobs. And this seems to be the natural cycle of a baseball offseason. And I imagine we will experience both of those over the course of the next few months.
Does that cycle influence the trade market at all? Do teams get more aggressive in their selling and what they're asking for because they try to take advantage of that dynamic?
It's probably individual team specific. I think each team is looking at where they are in terms of their roster and whether it makes sense to entertain on trades or invest in the free agent market.
You signed Frankie Montas. I know there's another pending deal that I don't think you can talk about yet, but setting those aside, do you still have an appetite, not just to add a starting pitcher, but to add a starting pitcher that you would say to him in negotiations, we can guarantee you a rotation spot?
Yeah, I think we have room for that. I don't think it's a necessity. And so we're going to continue to evaluate the market where we see opportunity to bring in players that we think are going to make us better. We're certainly going to pursue that. But with some of the moves we've been able to make and are working on making, I think we're getting to a level where it's no longer a necessity.
Along those same lines, how do you view Jose Butto, I guess, moving forward into the offseason, into the spring?
Yeah, so for guys like Jose, the easiest thing for them is to prepare the offseason as though they're going to be stretched out. Once you're stretched out, we can always shorten you up. And so Jose is going to stretch out over the course of the offseason. We'll probably stretch him out a little bit once he's into camp, and then we'll see how our roster shapes out. He proved last year he can be a weapon out of the bullpen, and he also has experience of going deeper into games as a starter. So it's a great skill set to have, and it gives us some versatility in our pitching staff.
Just to read between the lines of your previous answer, there are some starting pitchers on the market that will obviously get 5+ years. Do you have an interest in those guys, or are you kind of good without them?
I'm not going to comment on any specific contract length or any specific grouping of players, but I think we're always looking to add to our team, and if we think there's a deal that makes sense with an established pitcher, even those at the top of a rotation, we're certainly going to look at it.
How do you see center field breaking down now that you have Sari? I mean, is he basically in the Harrison Bader role, kind of?
I think we'll see. I think with Siri and Tyrone, we have two guys who are really talented defenders, can impact the game in a variety of ways. I imagine over the course of the year, they're both going to see significant time out there. Tyrone also has the ability of moving to the corners and playing very quality defense in the corners. So we'll see where that shakes out, but I'm really happy to have two premium defensive center fielders going into the season.
At first base, how important is defense versus offense to you at that particular position?
I think it's always a combination, and we care about first base defense, and I thought Pete played a very nice first base last year. He was very good around the bag, helped out our infielders a lot, and that's part of our equation and part of our evaluation of the position.
When you last spoke at Citi Field a couple of weeks back, you mentioned that Ronnie Maurice's progress has been a little bit slow going. How's that? Do you have any updates on?
Yeah. He's had a really good couple of weeks, and so I think we're heading in the right direction there. He's beginning baseball activities, and so all of that is really positive, and probably this is the best stretch of Ronnie progression that we've had in some time.
Will he be competing for a job in spring training?
I think let's see where we are when we get there. He certainly has the talent to compete for a job. We need the health to be in the right spot, and we also have to recognize this is a player who hasn't now competed in a year. And so we've got to get him back in baseball shape, not just completely healthy.
He wouldn't have a chance to play winter ball, would he?
At this point, I think it's unlikely.
What is Paul Blackburn's status after his spinal fluid leak surgery?
So he is recovering well, and that obviously is a unique surgery, a unique injury in baseball. But so far, everything is going well. He is on track to have a relatively normal spring training and on track to be available on opening day.
Do you envision him as a starter?
Yeah, I do. I think he certainly has the ability and has proven to do that. He also can pitch out of the pen, and so I think we're just going to have to see where we are when we get into March and approach April into how we want to set up our pitching rotation.
And is it the same deal for McGill off-season into spring training-wise?
Yes. Yeah, so Tyler is going to come to camp preparing to be a starter. If the situation occurs where we need to shorten them up, we'll have that conversation with them.
Could you see a path within your rotation that maybe you go with a guy who starts and maybe pitches 2 or 3 innings, and then supplement him with a guy who goes 3 innings?
I think we're always open to creative ideas. I don't know that we're going to go into the season with sort of a design tandem like that, but over the course of the year, we're probably going to explore every single option to get 27 outs that we can possibly find. But we understand the importance of creating true starting depth, of having a ton of options, not only in the major leagues but in AAA, that can pitch multiple innings, get you deeper into games, and so that continues to be a priority for us.
How do you feel overall about the state of where the bullpen's at, and is there kind of an appetite to maybe add some proven arms, high leverage arms in the back end there?
Yeah, I think over the course of the offseason we'll do that. We have a lot of time left. I have confidence in probably our core group that returns back there. But we have some openings, and I'm certain we'll make some additions to that group as the offseason goes along.
A few more?
What's your philosophy generally toward starting pitchers who've been elite and now are reaching free agency at a normal free agency age, 29, 30, 31? Historically, you've stayed away from those personally, but what's your general philosophy on those guys?
Yeah, I think we really do have to look at each player individually and understand what has made them successful, where are they on their careers, their individual individual injury history, and do our best to predict what that's going to look like over the term of the contract, however long that term they're seeking. We understand we're not going to be perfect there, and I've said this before, that the industry history of long-term starting pitching contracts deep into 30s is not a particularly rosy picture, but there are exceptions, and we certainly have to do our job to determine whether we can decipher who those exceptions are and whether there are guys out there who fit that.